This is something that's relevant to everyone. The idea is that when we increase our blood sugar, it wreaks havoc actually with our blood lipids. And so it's not eating fat doesn't cause us to get fat or have a high cholesterol. It really is the consumption of carbohydrates. We have been told that in particular animal fat is unhealthy, saturated fat, also tropical oils. And this is something I've researched very heavily. And I call it the demonization of saturated fat, and it's just simply wrong. And so what I emphasize to my colleagues, especially those that prescribe high-fat diet for their patients, particularly, I hear people all the time saying, my child has epilepsy, but I'm concerned that if I give him a high-fat diet, that we'll be trading off epilepsy for heart disease. And I lecture to physicians, I lecture to the public, and demonstrate for them that there is no reason to fear the saturated animal fat, that it's that combination of fat and sugar. That's what's really unhealthy. And I show the science behind the reason why we should not fear consumption of saturated fat. In my lecture, I'm going to cover the faulty science that actually began in the 1950s. It started with someone named Ancel Keys, who just believed that consuming fat would increase your cholesterol, which would cause you to have heart disease. There was never any science to support that idea. And then I'm actually going to talk about how the sugar industry paid off scientists, Harvard scientists, to mislead people, to demonize saturated fat. And then I'll talk about how the government got into it as well. And the government came up with guidelines that were completely not based on science. So I'm going to talk about the different levels of misinformation that began in the 1950s and frankly are still continuing today. I get contacted all the time by people who are worried about their cholesterol. So they're being pushed into taking medication to lower their cholesterol. They're concerned about their weight and their doctor tells them to go on a low-fat diet. There is so much misinformation, and I'm going to specifically talk about the American Heart Association, which has provided misinformation now for 60 years, and people don't understand how much the American Heart Association is influenced by the drug and the food companies, and how basically they are presenting information which is supported by industry. So I tell people that we've got to actually look at the real research, which demonstrates that the real demon on your plate is the sugar, is the bread, the potatoes. Any food that raises your blood sugar ultimately will cause harm. And so we need to stop fearing the fat on our plate, and specifically either animal fat or tropical oils, and welcome those foods as being beneficial and avoid the foods that will raise our blood sugar.